Good evening! Why am I so big? Hold up. I'm a little too tall here. Hold on. Let me get myself. Hi! It's time to be doing a SCP. Let's get this show on the road. I'm really excited to do this. Okay. Some people slide on in while we get started here. Dun, 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 dun. Alright. Oh. I think I set everything up right. Yeah, I did. Let's see, I can move over to here. Alright. Let's see here. Do. Alright, time to get started. Got this whole whiteboard setup started, just so I can have like a whiteboard set up. Boom. I don't know how I feel about this pen though. I need it to look. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, hold on. I've bunked it. Did I fix it? I think I fixed it. That would have been bad. Alright. So, I will be your professor for today. I will be teaching you all about SCP. Which, to begin, just for the record, a lot of this is what I know as a person. SCP changes pretty regularly, so if you are interested and invested in learning more about the SCP Foundation, I recommend doing your own research. Even if this is going to be kind of a quiet stream, I am more than happy to elaborate and talk through it. I quite enjoy SCP, so, you know. Let me actually, I think I had some, like, ambient noise that I wanted to play here, but I think I'm going to keep it on this. So, to begin. What is SCP? SCP stands for Secure, Contain, Protect, which is a funky way of saying that they collect anomalous entities. I can kind of elaborate on this. So to start off with, when we look at SCP, we look at Secure. The secure part of this is going to be capture. in order to have the secure part of this work, in order for it to be an effective method of holding something, you have to kind of take into note that the SCP Foundation's main goal is to capture these anomalies. To keep them kind of feeds into contain. Secure means to take an anomaly from its engaged environment, and you'd take that, capture it, you'd secure it. You'd make sure that it's in the place that it needs to be into. We also have contain. Contain is containment procedures. So containment of entity. What that means is when a object or an entity is brought into the facility, it is contained. It is put into its own environment in a secure location in order to make sure that it is in and of itself safe. Or at the very least, it poses a very lessened impact on the environment around it. Protect. Keep it safe. When we do SCP and we consider secure, contain, protect, we have to also consider the fact that we are looking to protect the entity or anomaly. SCP Foundation itself does not engage with destroying entities or otherwise making sure that they just don't exist anymore. There are capabilities where the SCP Foundation considers making anomalies neutralized or no longer a threat, but it is very, very rare that the SCP Foundation itself will actively attempt to destroy an item or let that item or entity fall into harm's way. The one thing to keep in mind about the SCP Foundation itself is that the SCP Foundation itself is morally gray. The Foundation itself has a very strict policy of maintaining its directives. So secure, contain, protect is the main thing. But the Foundation itself, which is comprised of a bunch of different things, it follows its own directives. Now, in order to kind of go from here, we erase our little board. What does the SCP Foundation do? So the SCP Foundation itself is broken up into different units. There are different hierarchies and structures within these units, and that's kind of like the main thing. The organization itself is a fictional organization, let me put that out there, but it is also an organization that deals a lot in the shadows. It's a shadowy organization. There are some SCP creators who have the SCP Foundation itself working with things like the government or with a big structure of Illuminati-esque groups around the world. But the main thing about the SCP organization itself is that it is a shadowy organization. Your normal, average, day-to-day person is not going to know about the SCP Foundation within the universe. So you can't expect Joe Schmo from down the street to go through and figure out that their neighbor has been abducted by a shadowy organization hell-bent on discovering why they puke pasta. It's just not, like, normal. At least not for a lot of people. Since they are a shadowy organization, there are layers. There are layers to it. Like an onion. The way that the SCP Foundation itself is operated is there are layers to it. We will get more into it later, but it basically operates on a top-down sort of view. You have the O5 Council, all the way down to level 0, no clearance sort of motherfuckers who just do, like, janitorial work. What you can expect from the SCP Foundation as a thing that you get to discover is that the SCP Foundation itself is a mixture of things. It can be comedy. There are plenty of joke SCPs out there who are designed to be funny. It can be horror. It can even be satire or even historical fiction. All of these kind of wrap itself up into what makes the SCP Foundation the SCP Foundation. The SCP Foundation itself is going to have a big variety of things that interact with it. And as you get deeper into the Foundation itself, the more you learn about these different facets. So, we've went over what the organization is. We went over a little bit more. And let's talk a little bit deeper. We're gonna go peel back the surface a little bit, and we're gonna talk about one of the main things that makes the SCP Foundation itself, which is anomalies. Yay! Anomalies are kind of the bread and butter of the SCP Foundation. These are entities or objects themselves that the SCP Foundation secures, contains, and protects. They are what makes the SCP Foundation tick. They're the special little bits and bobs that make the world go round, so to speak. So, what makes an anomaly an anomaly? Anomalies are classified in a variety of ways, but the most common ways that an anomaly is classified is safe, which is a smiley face. Safe objects are safe objects or anomalies, entities, whatever. They do not escape very often. They're very unlikely to breach containment. So they are a very safe individual to be around. I would totally always recommend reading safe. A lot of people don't actually sit down and discuss or get the chance to really dig into it, but safe entities and safe anomalies are really fun because they often have some really interesting and unique stories to them. There's Euclid. And there's Keter. Most people are more focused on Euclid and Keter than they are safe. The reason why is Euclid and Keter are more likely to reach containment, and they are also they tend to be a little bit more dangerous. But these do not equal safety. You can have... Hi, I'm doing good. Welcome. Are you here to get some learning in your noggin? I missed you too, bud. Ugh. I'm learning. I'm lecturing. Safe, Euclid, and Keter do not actually equal safety. Or at least not like the amount of safety they provide. For instance, safe anomalies tend to have a very different... I'm doing good, by the way. I forgot to answer that. Safe anomalies have a very different sort of set of containment procedures than maybe not safe anomalies like Euclid or Keter. Safe anomalies do not pose a high risk of breach. I'm not taking a break. I'm taking a sort of break from XIV, but I haven't been around for the most part because I've just been really busy. But I will probably get back to XIV at some point soon. And yes, this is very interesting. Safe anomalies don't have a high risk of breach, which means that these anomalies can be contained safely. This does not mean that they are harmless. I know, I'm okay. I promise. I've just been very, distracted. Safe anomalies can still be dangerous. Just because an entity or anomaly itself is rather safe and contained, and it doesn't risk a huge breach, doesn't mean that it isn't a huge safety risk getting a hold of it. So say, like, I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. Say, let's just look up some safe class SCPs real quick, just for an example. So, let's see here. I'm just gonna pick... Where's that? I think that mask was... Hold on. Man, I'm trying to think of, like... Is it the possessive mask? No, that's Keter. There are a whole ton of SCPs that are safe that are actively dangerous. So if you consider that to be a factor, you are more than welcome to consider it. They can still kill you. Or pose threat. All of this means that regardless of the containment procedure and the classification of an object, it can still kill you, or it can still even, like, cause you harm. Safe anomalies are a very low-risk entity, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that they are completely and totally harmless. They will not likely breach containment easily, and if they do, they are probably very easy to contain again. But that means that at the same time, they still pose a threat, because one thing to always think about too is the fact that SCPs themselves, if you're not paying attention to stuff like the fact that safe entities are still considered dangerous, you kind of have that mental game of like, oh, I didn't realize. There are quite a few safe entities that I think are pretty interesting. My personal favorite is 999. I believe 999 is safe. Hold on, I'm pretty sure. Yes, 999 is considered safe. 999 is a little jelly blob. He's very cute. And then we have Euclid. So Euclid anomalies are kind of a mid-ground. Mid-risk. Euclid anomalies tend to be a little bit more risky to be around. They tend to be a little bit more dangerous, and they have a higher chance than safe entities of breaking containment or being broken out of containment. These include things like monsters that the Foundation may be keeping in lockdown, or this may also contain things like individuals who maybe teleport or something like that, and they break containment because they are unable to keep in one place. This doesn't mean that all Euclid entities are inherently dangerous, similar to how all safe entities aren't inherently 100% not going to rip your throat out. Just means that they are able to be contained in a very specific way. Which is, all around, not the worst. You could always have something worse happen. Now, one thing that I think is really interesting about these is it's kind of a catch-all. While Euclid doesn't necessarily mean that it is the most safe or it's the most dangerous, it tends to be that mid-ground that a lot of creators go to when they want to make an entity that is, or an anomaly specifically, that is dangerous but not too dangerous. It's not going to end the world, but it is containable and it does break containment every now and again. Euclid cast entities tend to be pretty basic. You can find a lot of different things in there to kind of catch all. Not all are safe. Not all are dangerous. These entities are more than likely going to be things that would pose a unique and tangible threat to people, and these are also things that just can't control what they do. There's not a whole lot of reasoning with them. And even if there was, considering containment risk, a lot of these entities are put in this, like, box category of being this mid-risk. They might not, you know, simple. It's a pretty straightforward sort of dichotomy. So, the last of our main, because there are other anomaly classes, is Keter. Now, one thing that I will note is I say Keter. I've seen a lot of people say Keter. It's just kind of up to preference. You'll hear people say it differently depending on who's saying it. So, Keter anomalies. High risk of breach. These are anomalies that are going to be more than likely to break containment, and are individuals and anomalies who are going to break containment. Their entire containment style is based around the fact that they are either actively seeking out breaking of containment, or they are breaking containment themselves. Somebody's breaking in for them. One of the things that's pretty important is this also considered a category that has a lot of cognito hazards, which we'll talk a little bit about cognito hazards in a bit. Will likely breach containment. And then there are mostly unsafe/dangerous. That doesn't mean that they all are, but they are mostly. So Keter is where you find your things like the unkillable crocodile, shy guy, things like that. These very broad strokes, dangerous public safety violation as SCPs. These are SCPs that you can count on to really, really, really break things down. They are hard to contain. Some of them can't be contained. I know that there is 1 or 2 Keter class anomalies that exist as cognito hazards or as effects. They are, in particular, a very broad sort of grouping. There are other classifications. Very briefly mentioning them, there is... Oop, wrong pen. Neutralized, which is exactly as it says. Neutralized subjects are individual subjects in anomalies that are no longer active, so you do not have to worry about them. They've been removed by the Foundation or otherwise taken care of. The Foundation doesn't usually neutralize subjects on their own unless it is a severe risk to the safety of the world. So neutralized subjects aren't very often found. You are more likely to find them when somebody like the Global Occult Coalition comes in, which we will talk about them a little bit later. Neutralized, and then there's Thaumiel. Now, Thaumiel is a special class. Unlike a lot of other classes, Thaumiel, let me look up the exact definition, just so I have it. A Thaumiel class is used to contain other SCPs. Contains other SCPs. What this means is a Thaumiel class SCP is considered kind of like a box to contain other SCPs. It is an individual anomaly that is its ability itself leans it towards being able to contain and hold in an anomaly better than anything else. It's its own containment in a way. It's also the containment of other things. The last class that I think we need to go over really quick is Apollyon. And again, you will not see these classes very often, these extra classes. I just felt like bringing them up because I feel like it keeps it from getting weird when you actually want to research them. So Apollyon SCP class is a class of SCP that cannot be contained. No containment possible. These specific SCPs can kind of lend themselves to be incognito hazards. They can lend themselves to being events. Kind of similar to how some Keter classes are, but the difference is, while a Keter class anomaly might be an event, there are certain steps that the SCP Foundation itself takes to minimize the effects of those, and it's a classification for Keter that they are able to basically more easily contain what goes on with them. With Apollyon class entities and anomalies, unfortunately there is no way to contain or counteract these. They are considered to be incredibly dangerous. So if you ever get the chance to read up on those, there's only a handful of those, I think, that are available. That is kind of neat. These are kind of extra classes that you might not get the chance to actually see until maybe like later on in your research. But if you decide that you want to learn a little bit more, they are always there. Any questions before I move on? I will wait a second, take a sip. Hope everybody's having a good day so far. No questions? I'm moving on then. So, do the numbers mean anything? Yes and no. While some SCPs have a specific number attached to them, there are several different ways to classify, quote-unquote, the way we find and number entities and anomalies. The big one that most people point out is 0001. This would be the first SCP. Now, there's a lot of debate going around about what that first SCP actually is. But, at the same time, that can kind of change depending on where you're at, who you're at, and like who you're talking to. It's a very hot topic debate. There's a lot of talk about what the first SCP is. There's an entire section on the SCP Wiki dedicated to it, but this is kind of the jumping off point. The way that we kind of look at these numbers is more of a classification for the entities themselves. A lot of these entities are out of numerical order in a specific way. They are not. They are not categorized by order of capture. Most entities are picked up and brought in at different times. An entity labeled in the 200s, 300s can genuinely be labeled that way, and it could have been discovered back in like the fucking 1800s. Just depends on where you go. The way that we used numbers and SCP number, blah, 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 is because it gives us an easy identifier for, say, specific SCPs that you might want to see. So, like, for instance, if we think of 999, SCP-999 is that cute little blobby boy. He's a little friend. Or we can think of it like, say, Shy Guy, for example. Shy Guy is I think he is number 49. These different SCPs themselves, I believe, were found at very different times. If I remember correctly, I want to say 999 might have been in containment before 49, but I could be wrong. When it comes down to it, these are all identifiers to give specific SCPs their own unique thing. So when you look at them and you understand the way that they work, you know the number attached to them, and you're able to easily find them. It's not a numerical order in the same way of capture or containment, but it is a numerical order in the way of identifying, kind of like a Dewey Decimal System. It's pretty straightforward once you actually get down to it. So, another thing that you might see pretty often in the SCP wiki or in general with SCP is the censoring of information. So censored information in the SCP wiki is done for a number of reasons. So, there's anonymity. Usually this is done to censor out names. This is names of individuals who don't need to be identified, such as victims of different SCPs, Foundation personnel who may be above your pay grade, kind of like the O5 Council. Talk about the O5 Council. There might be doctors who no longer work at the Foundation, or individuals who may or may not want to be identified. The other thing that they do it for is safety. One reason why the SCP Foundation itself may limit the amount of information coming out of the SCP Foundation, the amount of information available on a standard report, is safety concerns. Information about the way an SCP works, or the way that it could possibly breach containment, what it did to do that, parties involved that may have been in lieu of this found to be part of said breach. Isaac Stodivos. Hi. I don't know what that means. Hold on. My Spanish is so rusty. Oh, Isaac likes you? Well, thank you, Isaac. But it's safety concerns, stuff like that. Simple enough. Let's see what else here. Cognito hazards. I've been bringing this up a lot. We'll discuss it more later. A cognito hazard is something that gets into your brain, gets into your head, I can't write via information. Which basically means that when an SCP is cognitohazardous or has cognitohazard properties, that SCP itself, reason why a lot of information about it might be redacted, is to keep it from actually getting into your head. Some SCPs operate like this, where they get into your head and then they're stuck in your head and you cannot leave, or they will not leave you. It also prevents the spread of cognitohazards, and it prevents the spread of memetics, which are a concept that are pretty closely linked to cognitohazards. So you should be able to, like, figure out from there. It's a pretty vibrant thing. But the censoring of information does have its own purpose. Keeps everything nice and tidy, keeps you safe, keeps the individuals within the Foundation safe, and it makes sure that as a individual reading, you do not run into any unwanted cognitohazards that may cause you problems. So one of the next things that's pretty important to the SCP Foundation are sites. SCP sites themselves have a variety of let's just say purposes. Some contain humanoids. Some are dedicated to research. Solely research. Sorry for my handwriting. Some are outposts, etc. So what that means is each specific SCP site has its own specific purpose. I think it's Site 41, I could be getting the number wrong, contains pretty much almost all humanoid entities or entities with low risk. There is a site completely dedicated to anti-memetics, to memetics itself, the concept that cognitohazards kind of work along. Some are located in the far reaches of the world to study and research specific, like, locational-based anomalies. And there are a bunch of other stuff that, like, sites do. Their main purpose, sites' main purposes, gather info on anomalies. That's their main goal. When you look at a site, the site itself is there to ensure that it sees what anomalies are present in that area, and they study them, research them, conduct tests, etc., etc. Sites have a wide variety of personnel, all the way from, like, janitors, to scientists, to mechanics. There's D-class that are usually on site. There's also specialists. There's security. Like, like MTF, etc., etc. All of these are important parts that make sites work. Each site will have a variety of these. It just depends on the site itself what they have. So, I mentioned D-Class briefly. So, what are D-Class? A D-Class agent is an agent or individual within the Foundation itself. Oh, hello.
Homeboy.
Homeboy. Oh, wow.
So what do you think?
Maybe? Hold on. Sorry about that. D-Class personnel are a wealth of individuals that the Foundation itself basically commandeers and uses for their own purposes. So an SCP site may have, Foundation site may have several of them, they may have none of them. Really depends on the site themselves. They're usually used for testing purposes. So, they are usually death row inmates, criminals, volunteers, sometimes demoted staff, etc., etc. D-Class personnel themselves tend to be individuals who are disposable. That's why they're called D-Class. In my opinion, D-Class is for disposable. They are individuals who have committed crimes, they're death row inmates, they're criminals, they're people, sometimes people volunteer to be D-Class. Sometimes they're demoted staff. These staff are usually people like doctors or researchers who have failed the specific tasks that they have been gotten so bad that the Foundation itself decides to demote them down to D-Class, which means that they are at a higher risk. Now, D-Class personnel are used in testing. So they are used for testing on humans. So when the SCP Foundation themselves get a spicy SCP, and they want to test what it does to people or how it interacts with the world around it, usually they will use the D-Class personnel to figure out what is going on with that. Think of them as test dummies. This is not at all... Remember how earlier I said that the Foundation itself is morally gray? This is that morally gray area. These individuals, specifically D-Class, usually die. Why they're pulled from things like the death row inmates, or they're pulled from individuals who most likely wouldn't be lost or forgotten, or anybody who didn't want them anymore, or even why the Foundation sometimes demotes their own personnel to D-Class. It is a way to get rid of both security risks, as well as a way to ensure that they have a total understanding of what the SCPs that they're working with do. D-Class can be afforded more rights. There have been instances of D-Class being given a pardon of sorts after a few years of service, but there is a high likelihood that individual D-Class will die during their tenure with the Foundation itself, which means that they tend to be a little bit of a finite resource, you know, just a little bit. Since there are D-class personnel, and D-class are a specific layer of the SCP Foundation's hierarchy, there are levels in between. There's clearance levels, I think, 0 through 5, and these determine how much information you're able to gather. 0 being absolutely none. This is people who work in, like, clerical work, or janitors, or stuff like that. So there's always, like, level 0, all the way to level 5, which is so cool. Level 5 contains the O5 Council. Now, the O5 Council is what runs it. It's the SCP's administration. Somewhere in between here, there's kind of a... between our researchers, MTF, etc. MTF stands for Mobile Task Force. You can definitely run into MTF a lot in SCP's stories. We'll talk a little bit about them. But for right now, I want to talk about the O5 Council just a little bit. The O5 Council itself, nobody really knows a whole lot about. But what we do know, O5 Council. Let's see here. I want to be sure on the actual amount of members. I want to say there's like 8 members. So So 2 legislative bodies. I'm trying to find it here. I want to say there's like anywhere from like 8 to 10 O5 council members. They make the big calls, which means that these specific this specific bureaucratic entity for the SCP Foundation is the one that makes all of the calls all of the time for big things. Sometimes individuals do have to get a permission from the O5 Council itself. So that means that individuals who may be doing something that they maybe shouldn't be have a tendency to wind up in the O5 Council. Well, having to request information or, well, permission to do things from the O5 Council. The O5 Council also oversees anything that has to do with a world-ending K-class scenario. In a K-class scenario, we'll talk about that too. It's going to be a little bit later on. They make the big calls. They're the shadowy head. What little we know about them is just how they operate generally. There's not a whole lot of information out there on the O5 Council as a whole. But the one balancing force to keep the O5 Council from doing anything and everything at once is the Ethics Committee. Let's see, it's really weird. Now, for an organization that uses an awful lot of human test subjects to throw at things like it's candy, the Ethics Committee exists for a very specific reason. The Ethics Committee itself is a balancing force. And what it does is it makes sure that there is nothing going on that is too fucked up. Keeps things from getting too fucked up. They're the individuals when a mass amount of these class subjects have been lost to the exact same entity. And it is just causing them suffering. The ethics committee is the individual committee who steps in and says, hey, no, you can't do that anymore. They also advocate sometimes for specific SCPs to have better care and taken care of. Usually these are with humanoid SCPs who have sentience and human brain function. And then obviously they handle things that maybe the O5 Council itself probably wouldn't be into. Which is not the worst thing in the world. They have a lot of sway in the SCP universe itself. So they are a very dedicated bunch. Now, with these two, they kind of act as a balancing force. So obviously you have, like, let's draw a little scale here. On one side you have O5, and then on the other side you have ethics. Now, O5 can overweigh ethics if it really wants to. But at the same time, the ethics committee is pretty important, and it keeps things stable where O5 might not be able to. Again, this is a lot of my own understanding. Have anything to counteract this argument, feel free to let me know. So, the last thing that I want to talk about structurally is the MTF. MTF stands for Mobile Taskforce. Think of them as the military branch of the SCP Foundation. They are specialized, military trained units who deal with dangerous or hostile SCPs or threats. This means that these individuals are able to fight, they're able to be kind of the guiding force. They are the ones who go in and a lot of times actually do the secure part of the secure, contain, protect. The researchers do they're kind of like the bookends. They handle the secure, they handle the protect. They kind of handle contain, but MTF are kind of the individuals who actually make a lot of this work. They put everything together, they capture, they do a whole lot of different stuff. So it works out. They're kind of the backbone to the Foundation itself. They make a lot of things work. Which, you know, it always works out. You see a lot of MTF in stories. You see a lot of people cosplaying MTF. It's just a military look. I think that it is certainly different. So, now we're getting into some of the fun stuff. This is some stuff that's not necessarily needed to know, but is always good to know. And these are some extra goodies that you'll probably run into on your SCP journey. That is, let's do something real quick about K-class scenarios. These are end of the world scenarios. So, end of the world scenarios. K-class scenarios and K-class, just in general. Let me make sure that I'm not missing another classification. But K-class scenarios are, end of the world. they are things that might cause harm to humanity. And then they might also be destructive to reality itself. Sorry for my terrible handwriting. And they might also have things where they are they have different classifications depending on what they do. So for instance, K-Class has a whole ton of different stuff. Hi Jack, welcome. You came in at the fun bits. So say there's AK, ADK, AC, EK, FK, GK/HK, HK, IK, LK, MNOP. There's an SCP K-Class scenario for literally anything and everything you can imagine. Like for instance, let me hit XK. XK is one of the more an XK class scenario is something that's brought up from time to time that you'll probably see. It's probably the most consistently brought up K-class scenario. An XK scenario is an end of the world scenario. It is a very broad term that you'll see used pretty often. I have a few more things that I want to go over here. So we'll talk for a minute about scenarios. Each scenario is unique. You'll see a different scenario for just about everything. Any questions before I move along to more goodies? This gives me an excuse to take a sippy. No questions? Alright. I'm gonna move. Alright. K-class scenarios are usually created from a bunch of different stuff. K-class can be made by everything. Anything and everything just about has the potential to be K-class if it is dangerous enough. Considering how, think of K-class as the grand reveal. It is what you will see very often with entities that are that Apollyon that we talked about, that Apollyon classification that we talked about. The one that I consider to be kind of opposite Thaumiel. This is what that is. Those are specific entities and anomalies that can make these specific end-of-the-world scenarios. Or tragic scenarios. Dangerous scenarios. Things like that. Thaumiel is the goodies. Thaumiel is kind of what this is. Keter class anomalies and Euclid class anomalies are kind of more susceptible to having K-class properties. However, I don't think I recall ever seeing a safe class anomaly or entity that had anything in it that could possibly cause a K-class scenario. So just keep that in mind. Much like everything, it is a sliding scale. There could be a safe entity or anomaly out there that I don't know of that is actually capable of producing K-class end-of-the-world scenarios, like an XK. So, our next good little talk about here is what a containment breach is. So, I've talked a lot about the idea of an entity or an anomaly being able to breach containment. What this means is that an entity is able to break out of their containment, either assisted or unassisted, and they are free from their prison of hell and awful. They are free to roam the earth until an MTF picks them back up and puts them back in. This can range anywhere from a gas leak. You can have it be a, like a data breach. Somebody left their computer on a little bit too long, and something might have slipped out a little bit. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I have nothing to do with any current breaches that are going on. There are physical breaches. Fires! Yes, fires! Fires count! Fires can be containment breaches. Hold on, let me fix my postie here real quick. Fires can certainly be containment breaches. Natural disasters, by that metric. And outside interference. These are all very valid ways of an entity or an SCP itself breaking and getting out of containment and causing a breach. Here's the thing with containment breaches. Containment breaches can range wildly. Just as much as... Oh. Whoopsies. Just as much as a containment breach is... I think I fixed that right. Just as much as a breach can be caused by one entity, you can also have site-wide breaches. These site-wide breaches are kind of similar to how you would look at like the containment breach game itself. I think a lot of people, when they think of SCP, they think of containment breach the game. Think of a containment breach as being anywhere from a small little like this anomalous rock that can flick in and out of reality, and it's harmless other than it pops in and out, but it always stays in the same place. If you pick that up and you take it outside of its containment chamber, it has breached containment. Or, in a rare case, one entity could get out and accidentally free a whole bunch of other entities, and then suddenly you have a site-wide breach. It can range in such a big motion that it is incredibly important to note that every breach is different from each other, and every breach changes. The amount of entities involved in a breach, the amount of things involved in a breach, the amount of players in a breach is changing event by event. Now, I did say earlier outside organizations. And one of the interesting things about outside organizations is there are a lot of them, but I'm just gonna kind of like quickly go over a couple. So we'll do outside orgs. These are just a few that I think are interesting that I would really like to talk about a little bit more. The one that you'll see the most probably, there are two that you'll see the most. You'll see the GOC, which is the Global Occult Coalition. The GOC is a very unique organization. The GOC itself is focused on the eradication of SCPs. I like to think of the GOC as an exact opposite to the SCP Foundation itself. That's not entirely true, but that's just how I remember them. The Global Occult Coalition is something that is very opposite to the goals of the SCP Foundation itself. They have a tendency to destroy objects, they have a tendency to shoot on sight. They don't really have the same scientific ethics and scientific integrity that the SCP Foundation itself has. So it tends to be a little bit more unpredictable. Now, for really wanting to discuss unpredictable, we do have a very, very good, considerate, up-and-coming individual, and that would probably be the Chaos Insurgency. So, the Chaos Insurgency is a splinter group of the SCP Foundation itself. They have a very strict regime. They tend to keep their individuals in a very bad situation. The Chaos Insurgency is probably one of the worst organizations you could work for. They have a very, they treat almost all of their employees like D-class personnel. So if you are invested at all, I would recommend staying away from them. But they also have a similar interest to the SCP Foundation itself. They do collect and research SCPs, but for their own purposes rather than for the betterment of humanity or for the pursuit of scientific research. The next group that I think is pretty interesting that you might see pretty often is going to be the Church of the Broken God. Broken God. So the Church of the Broken God is a very specific group. They worship a how do I put this? They worship a god that is mechanical. I think they're kind of, in a way, if you know Warhammer, I would compare them vaguely to Mechanicus in that regard. They're extremely hostile. They try and break SCPs out all of the time. They're very, very, very dangerous. They have identified several bits and bobs that make their broken god up. We actually have a few SCPs for them in particular. There is the there's SCP-217, I think 271 and 1139. I think they also came from a how do I put this? I think they came from another SCP as well. There's a clockwork mechanism SCP that I'm completely forgetting the name to. That is the origin point for them. And here are a couple of silly billy ones that I just think are fun. There's Are We Cool Yet? I love them! How do I love them? Okay. Are We Cool Yet? Right? They're a group of individual artists. They're artists or an artist. They are individuals who engage in art, but their art has anomalous properties. And they use them for exposure. They are the funniest fucking shit. I would totally recommend it. They have fought God and won. I would totally recommend checking out anything with Are We Cool Yet? I love them. They're so silly. They have several art installations that you can find. The Birth of Cool is one article that I think you should check out. There is also, I think, there's like a whole list of SCPs that they are a part of. And I love them. They're just so silly and so fun. They are definitely, like, probably up there as one of my top groups in the SCP setting. And then, one of my favorite groups to talk about is Wondertainment. Wondertainment is a hell in a handbasket. They collect people, per se, and change them into anomalous individuals. I would totally recommend reading the Wondertainment series. There's a whole ton of SCPs there that I think are really interesting, and they range in a variety of topics. They always start off with Mr. or Miss, and then there's also specific articles dedicated to Wondertainment. Wondertainment is a very anomalous organization. We're not really sure what their goal is, but they are Wondertainment, so they're just doing whatever for the goal of it. They're so weird. I would totally recommend it. Wondertainment's probably, like, the cool uncle of SCP organizations. What else? And then I had a couple of, this is turning out a little bit shorter than I thought. Wow. I have a couple of articles that I figured you guys might want to check out. These are what I consider to be, like, classics, per se. These are articles in particular that I myself think that everybody should get the chance to watch or read. I would totally recommend, if you want to watch somebody read these, check out the Vulcan. His narrations are always great, and he has a lot of these already, so you can find a lot of them on YouTube here. Oh, excuse me. Our first one that I would totally always recommend, these are kind of like my basics, is 173. 173 is the statue. You've probably seen him. He was the star of Containment Breach when it first came out. Snap your neck. There's 1,000,001 different representations of the statue, and the actual page that they have for it is 10 out of 10. I love it. The statue itself is a very functionally interesting SCP. It's a very good baseline SCP. It helps you get a very good gauge on what in particular makes an SCP. It tells you everything from the way the containment procedure is done, down to what experiments have been done with D-Class, to what a containment breach for it would look like. It's a very good starter SCP. I would totally recommend it. There is number 87. The Stairwell, that's another good one. An infinite staircase and the monsters inside of it. I would totally recommend it. I think it's probably one of those ones that's more on the horror side. We have 682. I have my list right here. 682 is also known as the Hard to Destroy Reptile. It is a funky guy. If you're looking for that big old monster story, it's there. The Hard to Destroy Reptile is pretty interesting and invested. There's a lot of connecting lore for it, and it interacts with a lot of other SCPs that you might be interested in. My favorite one is there's a little girl who is an SCP who actually quells its more destructive tendencies. I totally recommend if you get the chance to read it. It's a lot of fun. We have the Plague Doctor, which is number 49. The Plague Doctor is a head scratcher. If you do get around to reading it, I want to know what you think the pestilence is. I've seen 1,000,001 theories on what the pestilence is, and I need to know what other people think about it, because I am, like, completely in the zone of, like, I don't know what the fuck it would be, but I really hope I figure it out. I want to say it's probably, like, death or something like that, but I could be wrong. And then we have 96, Shy Guy. The Shy Guy is a pretty common one that you see here and there. It sparked a whole lot of spookies when it first was like a huge thing. 79 is the old AI. Don't have much to say on that one other than it is a good read. It is a good recommended read. I also have 294. And 294 is just fun. It is called the Coffee Machine, or as I like to call it, the Cup of Joe. You will see what I mean when you read it. And then we also have, to finish this off, a list of entries, story entries that you guys should read. Which, starting from the top here, I have recovered data entry file. You should read that. There's the Antarctic Exchange Hub. I would totally recommend the Anti-Memetics Division. We read that on stream once. What else? Portraits of Your Father. And then I'm trying to remember what the actual name in it. What the actual name of it is. This one leads into a bigger thing, so I would totally recommend reading the Class of 76. Class of 76 is the specific SCP entry that kicked off the "you do not recognize the bodies in the water" meme. So it is pretty important. It's pretty interesting. I would totally recommend it. I actually don't think I have a whole lot left. I think that's about it. About an hour and a half non-stop of me talking my brains out about SCP. I'll probably actually sit down and make a more concise, proper video out of this. Probably chop it up a little bit, make it a little bit better. You know, I feel like as a fan of SCP, this is probably about as good as I could do to get people actually ready to read. One thing that I noticed a lot when we were doing SCP streams pretty frequently is the fact that a lot of people came in and asked questions about if an SCP, like, what does this mean? What does that mean? What's this? And now we have a resource to point people at. I think it's pretty important to have that resource, at the very least. I don't really have anything else. It's like a whole lot of me speaking to the camera, which is fine. I don't mind it one bit. Yeah, I'm a little bit too tall here. Let me put myself back in my place. But yeah, that was kind of it. It was short but sweet. I don't mind it being short but sweet. The streams have been a little bit short lately. I'm planning on next week getting back into it, especially over the weekend. We'll probably be doing more stuff. I have plans for Halloween. Oh god. Hold on. I dropped something. I'm back! Alright, Jack, you've lost, You've lost tall privileges. I'm taking your kneecaps. Oh. Oh. We're gonna be doing some more streams, though. I think, I think tomorrow... Sometime tomorrow, I think I'm gonna be doing, more Maiden of the Blackwater. I'm taking your knees. Maiden of the Blackwater, and then we're also gonna be doing, I know we're reading Poe on Halloween itself. Like, it's gonna be a late night, Poe stream. That I can read Edgar Allan Poe. Yeah, of course. It was really, you came at the very end, so you missed all my, like, overall go over. But yeah. No problem. Alright, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna go get a nap, because I'm a little bit sleepy. Oh, I will see you guys next time. I love you. Goodbye.